Best thing about Marco Rubio?
The best thing about Marco Rubio is that he has the potential, unique among the Republican field, to be the most transformative Republican since Newt Gingrich, who was very transformative, even since Ronald Reagan. He has, I think, the best opportunity to bring the Republican Party into the modern era.
So you're saying he's going to get past the dry lips thing?
Yeah.
You think?
You know, Marco, I think he has natural talent. I mean, it's hard being a politician.
He really is an incredible
and it's rough.
speaker.
But it's not just that. It's just he's incredibly intelligent, and he's ruthless, and he's ambitious. Two qualities which really, really, really count for something.
Yeah.
His biography obviously is pretty stellar, and his ability to compensate for mistakes impresses me a lot.
Yeah.
But if there's anyone in this field who has the opportunity to bring the Republican Party on certain spaces, in immigration and others, to a place where more Americans are comfortable with Republican policies, for example, appealing to the middle class on economic issues, Marco Rubio is pretty much the only candidate, I think, who has that potential to be and bring the Republican Party on the right side of history.
Is that too much pressure for one of these guys to be under? Because I've heard this a lot. Everyone's saying he's the next Reagan. There's more of a visionary feel there. That's what he's going to bring. Except that's a lot of pressure. Republicans love Ronald Reagan. I know that much. That's a lot of pressure to put a guy under.
It's an enormous amount of pressure. It's almost an unfair amount of pressure. But it's the job, that he signed up to do.
Yeah.
And if anybody is capable of doing it, it's Marco Rubio. He has been their best bench talent for a long time, and now is his chance.
So not that the water thing when he had the dry lips is that important, of course, when he had the rebuttal to the State of the Union. But do you think it's good that he got a gaffe like that out early on? Because I do think the media does, of course, we focus on all these ridiculous things that happened. So he did something that just was, it was great for making GIFs, and we all watch it 1,000 times. But he got like some silly stumble out of the way, and that does season you, right?
Usually the earlier the better for those things. And again, he was able to make fun of it very quickly. He did some very creative things with social media that, made people understand that, he doesn't take himself too seriously. He takes his job seriously, himself not so much, which people like. It lends the, again, anything whenever you say something lends the aura of authenticity, you're basically saying it's not authentic, but it it shows him to be kind of a regular guy. He can fake being a regular guy pretty well, which is more than can be said for most candidates and most of us. But yeah. Again, the potential is there, though. I mean, the pressure is there, but the potential is really there. He's the real thing.
So what's the worst thing about Marco Rubio?
The worst thing about Marco Rubio is Cuba. Cuba is going to be a huge issue in this election because Obama's efforts to reopen relations with the country, of course, where Rubio has a very strong heritage. I mean, it's going to be front and center. And his position is revanchist. I mean, it just is. It is a position that Ronald Reagan would not have taken at the same point. Mm-hmm. It's a position that essentially says it's okay for the Cuban people to suffer because Marco Rubio has a hang-up about communism. That's what the logic of the position is. Again, he has the potential to be the Cuban American who takes America's relationship with Cuba into the next century. On almost every other issue, Marco Rubio has a new idea. He's a man of the future on the right side of history. Mm-hmm. On Cuba, he is on the wrong side of history, generationally, demographically, and he's impervious to it. Now you could say, well, that's good because he's consistent, he sticks to his position, but frankly, the good policy here that virtually everyone who has some sense about this agrees with is to engage with Cuba, to help Cuban people, and to let the Cold War be the Cold War.
I mean, Conan O'Brien did his show down there, so clearly people want relations to warm up.
There are no nuclear missiles. There's no threat of nuclear missiles from Cuba. Yeah. That was the big thing during the Cold War, if you remember.
Yeah.
I mean, Ronald Reagan talked with the Soviet Union a lot, engaged with them, wanted to expose American culture to the Soviet Union, wanted to increase trade with the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. At the end of his presidency, second term, Marco Rubio is acting unlike Ronald Reagan here.
So I find that interesting about Marco Rubio's foreign policy in general, because he definitely is a throwback more to Reagan, and he wants America to assert its role in the world, or what he sees as America's role in the world more. 3 years ago, I would have said nobody would be going for that. But I do think the geopolitical situation in the world has changed, and I tend to think that people are going to be voting for a more interventionist foreign policy. Do you agree with that?
I think people are. I mean, I think there's a sense that America's place in the world is, if not weakened, it's just much less influential than it was. We seem to have much less control over what happens. And Marco Rubio is running essentially to say, well, I'm going to assert more control, I'm going to assert American values there. On Cuba, people want that to mean engagement. They want intervention. It doesn't just be military intervention.
Yeah.
It means the full panoply of power, hard power, soft power, talking power, people power. You understand why Marco Rubio has the position he has on Cuba. But it's the wrong position.
Yeah.
It's the wrong position, and I think he knows it. He has to know it because history is moving in the opposite direction. And normally it really wouldn't matter, Cuba, but it's going to be front and center in this election. And so Marco Rubio is going to have to deal with Cuba, and I think that's the worst thing about him at this point.
All right, Marco Rubio is his Cuba stance. The worst thing about him is foreign policy going to be a bigger part of the 2016 election, maybe than people think it's going to be. Let us know your thoughts in the comments right down below.